Hey everyone, great to be here. I have Anatoly, founder of Solana, joining me today. I'm sure we're going to have a fun conversation. Anatoly, I'm sure everybody already knows you, so we can skip introductions. But yeah, would love to start with all of the exciting things happening in US. It's been an interesting time for the past 4 years since we launched mainnet, but I'm sure uh, we see very positively kind of all the developments, but I would like to know kind of what's your take and how you see the market evolving now.
Well, thanks for having me, first of all. It's been a while since we've done a podcast. I think it's been, what do we do? Um, the near the whiteboard, yeah, series. That was like 7 years ago, 6 years
It
ago.
was
It's a
yeah
while.
beginning of 2019. So
Yeah,
yeah,
6 years
and
ago. Well, um, recent events. I guess there's definitely been a change in the U.S. administration. Um, that seems pretty exciting. Um, so far. I think like basically like the big change that I see is that like Hester Pierce is now kind of preparing a crypto policy for Paul Atkins, who's going to take over pretty soon. And she's been a huge advocate of having some semblance of rules. Um, and Paul seems to be fairly crypto forward too. So the hope is that we get some set of guidances that says like if you do this you get no action letter or something like that. Effectively the SEC says that those things are okay. um, like I don't, like I think people are somewhat overestimating the impact of this because I think the government wasn't able to kill crypto because crypto was legally in the right. They lost a bunch of cases. So it was kind of a dumb effort just to slow things down and increase costs for like startups and founders. Um, those costs are a pain in the ass, but all they are is just a cost, right? Progress and everything else move forward. Um, so I don't know like, how much actual impact we will feel from that. Um, what I'm more kind of excited is that maybe the latter stages of this where the stablecoin bill passes and like a whole bunch of kind of actually bigger, meatier, substantial changes make it through Congress and get signed, you'll see people that are like businesses, like banks and whoever, the visas, the fintechs, actually start adopting crypto across the entire stack, just back end and consumer. Um, and that'll be, I think, a pretty huge change because I think Visa as a global network serves bajillion trillions of volume per day or like per year in transfers, and all of those are happening through this like very crafty old interbank, originator bank, the depositor bank, or whatever kind of network. And if all of that is replaced with stable coins, I think you'll start seeing fees for consumers drop and just everything start moving faster. We'll probably see, crazy to think about it, but like $1 trillion worth of stable coins issued, in the next 5 years.
Yeah, I mean to just comment on the first part, I think the removal of this, the sword that was kind of hanging in the air, it's not, it's not, it's not just the legal fees from my perspective, although those are substantial and also not clear what you're paying for before. But I think what I'm excited about is the founder kind of because especially for past like couple of years it was actually hard for like US based founders to really kind of reason even about like, hey, how would I approach crypto kind of as part of my strategy. And like we as a space in general, we need to get to a level where it's not a crypto startup, it's like solving a problem startup that uses crypto. And so I think that was really hard. in US for past, especially couple of years, where like, hey, I want to do biomed, I need to use some blockchain for and crypto for this. I want to raise money in this way. I want to, share ownership as well. And like people were not able to approach that, right? I'm excited about that changing, and so like we have more, normal startups that are using blockchain crypto on the back end for their, to solve their problems. Um, but yeah, I mean, on stablecoins, I totally agree. I think the just velocity of money that we can achieve is so much faster. So yeah, really excited. Um, yeah, I mean, I think the interesting question for sure is also given kind of the pro business stance and like how this thing's gonna start weaving in. If Dodge, for example, uses blockchain as well, and like we uh, not just move some of the business side, but also government side, and kind of start integrating those things. That's also to me would be really excited.
Yeah, that's kind of like I think I think the real change is that you have a startup that's like mid stage for them to go into crypto, right? Prior to in the previous administration, they had to eat a whole bunch of risk and cost because of the fees and the uncertainty. And now, hopefully, that uncertainty is gone, so that founder can kind of make that decision much, much, much easier. If it makes sense for their product to use crypto, they can just flip the switch and use the technology. So we should see a lot more kind of experimentation on the early stage, mid stage companies that are trying to figure out growth and value capture and all that, which was going to be good for the entire space.
So I think one of the like long running conversations, right? Obviously we've had, which is sharding or no sharding, and your position always been that, I mean, as far as I understand, you know, you want a global, like single global market, right? And you want the fastest synchronization possible, and that is effectively how you achieve, the most liquid market, the most transparent market, which makes sense. And I mean, obviously, you guys had amazing success, and we've seen with Trump token, we've seen a very interesting kind of, uh, effects of that. I'm curious because at the same time, the clearly the AMM structure, right, where you have, one piece, like one or two pieces of state that are being hit by everybody from everywhere, is, naturally creates bottlenecks. And like I'm curious how you're thinking about that, and I'll share some.
Yeah,
So
like in DeFi, you actually don't see that many classic database hotspots. It's worse than that. Because what happens is that um, like the bigger kind of thicker liquidity markets are easier to deal with, but that's not what people want. What they want is the
the
super
thin
low
liquidity.
liquidity. Yeah, very thin, very volatile. Like nobody can really actually predict the price of this thing, and they want it now and as fast as possible, and they don't want to retry. And they will turn off every MEV protection, every sandwich protection feature, and bump their slippage to like 50% just to be first. So people will like do it on like themselves, will like go through the UX, through the menus to go and do this. So they will override the defaults. And this is like because the hotspot here is any single transaction that touches that thing changes the price because it's so low liquidity. So you can't predict what that slippage is, and you're willing to pay that extra. And I think this is a very kind of difficult, gnarly micro market structure problem that I don't know how to fix.
Right.
I don't think anybody really does, but it's going to take a whole bunch of research and kind of iteration. There's some ideas. Max, who was like, gave up on Ethereum and joined Anza, has some pretty good ideas about how to potentially combination of priority ordering and replay plus the application being aware of that ordering and being able to move its price. relative to like the execution to kind of avoid some of the worst case scenarios. And if you can avoid worst case scenarios, then in theory, people providing liquidity can quote tighter spreads and things become better and move faster and stuff like this. Um, so the bottlenecks here are not even like it's not even a capacity or physical constraint on the network itself. It is the like information light code, if you want to think of it. It's just locally the price changes by the first photon that touches it. Just okay. And now everyone that thought the price was X is now it's completely different. Um,
If you can observe the price, it already changed.
exactly. This is like a true Schrodinger problem. Um, I don't think there's any solutions even in traditional finance, and most folks kind of point to like discrete batch auctions and things like that as kind of better market structures that exist um, than currently exist.
Well, I think the problem is people want this market structure, right? People like it's effectively like a gambling market structure where you don't even know what you're gonna get. But
Yeah, at least when we were working on NFTs, the the teams working on this have outpaced my ability, like my knowledge and understanding of finance. But at the time, many years ago, when it was just NFTs on Solana, there was similar problems where you'd have like people make a mint, and it would do the most simplest mint, just everything opens up and first come first serve on chain. So people will just spam the chain like for 30 minutes prior, submitting bids that would fail. So they're willing to pay the fee repeatedly just for the higher probability chance of landing first and getting that thing. And we built Dutch auctions, we built every kind of auction you can think of, and nobody would want to use this because it turns out people actually like the idea and the event, like both the founders and the users want the spectacle of the sellout that can they even like were proud of the congestion that they caused in
yeah,
the
they
rest
want to
of the
see the
network.
congestion, yeah, because that shows how valuable that is.
Yeah, yep. So there's some weird things there that make it really hard to change user behaviors in the application layer for it to be easier for the chain. Um, um, I'm not sure how to address that. Like the best we can do is basically isolate them. And now like NFT mints don't really touch the rest of the chain, but you can still create a mint that's going to be, you know, arguably a bad experience for the users, but this is what the users want, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we've been thinking about it a lot, and kind of one of the uh, like fundamental challenges of the kind of the way right now, especially DeFi works, is that yeah, you're submitting transaction without knowing what you're actually going to arrive to, right? And uh, there is a different approach where you effectively first figure out what you're going to do, right, and then you already settle that commitment. And so that's kind of this intent architecture that we've been working on.
And that's closer to like a central limit order book where you have effectively orders that can settle later that people have posted whenever the price crosses and stuff.
Exactly, yeah. Like in a way, I mean, you decompose the central order book and you say, hey, we have like the blockchain serves as effectively the ledger for, for settlement and asset control, and then yeah, you have some way of matching, right? This can be peer to peer, like we can literally agree on something right now, and this will be an OTC transaction, and we settle that on chain. It can be like, hey, who gives me the best price, or it can be indeed an order book where orders are matched. And the interesting thing is like you can have those kind of local and global markets in this structure supported at the same time, because
Yep.
you can be matching with somebody who's here in San Francisco, whatever, 50 millisecond like latency, and if you're willing to wait, you can get quotes uh, from around the world as well.
What is the trade off there with intent?
Uh, I mean, you do need a more active kind of liquidity provider right on the other side. So a like the basic like AMM structure, right, where you just set it and forget, doesn't work exactly like that. Now, the cool thing is we now have also ability to run effectively autonomous like uh, actors outside of blockchain, right? Through TE. I mean, there's some additional security assumptions that come in with that.
So is there a cost because you're a liquidity provider? You have to go put up capital
You have to maintain,
and
yeah,
take
some
risk.
some of the yeah. So it is very similar to how you would do it on centralized exchange.
Or yeah, or a order book.
Yeah, on our
Yeah.
book.
So the I mean, this stuff will work for tokens with a ton of liquidity because the problem is like you as a market maker, you have to put you know you have a choice between your dollars being in T-bills for the year for 3 months or buying this capital that then you post at a position. And when you buy the token that is like a liquidity
Volatile,
shitcoin,
yeah.
yeah, your risk and volatility goes up so much that the ROI on that to be has to be really 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 large. And this is why I think that it's going to be kind of hard for that early stage capital formation process to move to intense and central limit order like clubs even. So even like on chain with all the other available liquidity, like a super optimized central limit order book with like their own market makers, basically like Phoenix can't actually serve the 40,000 whatever coins that are created every day because you just can't afford to go buy the capital to post it. Like you're gonna see that stuff working for some things, but not for everything else, right? So just like everything else, once the problem is complicated enough, some of the things will work somewhat.
Yeah, I mean, obviously decomposing it into different stages effectively of tokens makes sense. I mean, one thought we've been working on is effectively you can have a AMM style market maker that like when you launch a token, right, you just put like effectively similar how you would put it in Uniswap Radium um, type, and it effectively just is able to trade against all of those requests.
Yeah, people have built those for Serum. That was actually, I think, almost like Radium's first design, as they sat right on top of the Serum, from what I remember. It's pretty interesting. The Near project that built the intents out. What's the goal of that?
I mean, so the intent from my perspective is actually how not just crypto but also like global commerce layer, right? Because you can also find people to do marketing, right? Or move some steel or like the intent itself can be a lot more generic than just crypto settlement. So it really just depends on how you verify the delivery and how do you like dispute if something goes wrong. So kind of the way we look at this is intents are there's like kind of interconnect that different actors, right? Be that AI agents, financial participants, users, consumers, etc., can now do trade.
Is this the primary way that you think you can unify cross-shard liquidity?
So I mean, we on Near itself we don't have the cross shard liquidity problems, but the we actually by doing this we unified the cross chain liquidity, right? We have Bitcoin, we have Solana, we have XRP, we have Dodge, like more chains are launching as well, and so that itself is also like serves as kind of unified market for. And so I mean that's why I'm curious because I mean that's kind of been the pitch, right, uh, for Solana. So I'm curious how you see these two different approaches.
I mean, like you see, like a combination of like Wormhole will provide wrappers for tokens, and once they exist, then you can effectively, like in Jupiter, you can, the token doesn't even need to be fully wrapped yet. When you buy it, it can be wrapped on demand and stuff like that. So you can build out similar functionality. It's going to be largely depend on product and stuff like that. The nice advantage of having everything in one unified state machine is um, you have a lot of people experimenting with different markets, and you have aggregators that can pull all the liquidity from those markets together. So functionally, you kind of have very simple products. You have a Orca AMM or Radium or whatever. They're building out those pieces, and those markets are competing with any kind of intent-based order book. Um, and then you have an aggregator that can pull liquidity from all of them, and they're both competing with the markets themselves, but also providing them a valuable order flow and stuff like that. So you kind of have this really nice loop that's happening on Solana right now, um, that hopefully is hard to disrupt and just keeps going. Then I don't have to do anything. And it's easy to know what to do for the L1, right? You just make it cheaper, faster, and things just keeps getting better. The I think the advantage that has is very you have very many different points of user acquisition that are somewhat uh, not entirely like competitive, not totally adversarial to each other. Um, so even some of the marketplaces work together, like Pump and Radium. You would think, why would Pump want to use Radium? It's easier, it's more available, right?
Yeah,
It's in the same ecosystem. They didn't, they just used their APIs, and it was much faster for them to launch. Um, I don't We haven't seen anything like that really spring up in cross chain or cross L2 even. Um,
yeah. I think the because the communication itself is so complicated, right? And like you kind of relying on stitch work of different solutions right now. It's hard for someone to rely on like, okay, this as a team will just handle stuff for me. I mean, it happens, right? It just like at way smaller scale.
if you were to go build an L1 with enshrined solutions for all this stuff, the problem is you just built another L1. They have to go find apps to go get users, and are those solutions more than marginally better than what exists is also unknown. Even if there's a bunch of inefficiencies in the current kind of setups, users ultimately just they have their wallet, they hit the swap button in Phantom or whatever, and that's good enough for large majority of them.
Yeah.
Or even simpler, they have a Telegram bot.
Yeah, it's just a Telegram bot, and or soon it's just gonna be AI bot that trades for you, and you just send it tweets, and it's like figures out what you want. Yeah, so maybe that's a good segue into some of the AI stuff. I mean, we've seen a crazy amount of activity over past weekend, and kind of the market freaking out as well. Um, Curious, kind of where you fall on this, uh, on a few of the different dimensions that people are discussing around like national security, around usage, but also like in general, interesting to hear your thesis on this.
I think people are overhyped in the short term, underhyped in the long term. That's a cop out. uh, Look, ultimately, AI is just a bunch of data. It's just like some files on a hard drive. Um, it's not in itself autonomous. Um, you have to have people to maintain those systems and drive them forward. Even if you make it all smart contract based and whatever, it's still ultimately just a bunch of data that's automating a task. But I think the tasks that it can automate are going to be kind of subtly very transformative, because you're lowering the differences between like the very easy example, I'm a terrible writer and I hate I hate writing. I hate writing long form. It takes me a lot of
That
work to
that we
like
all know.
yeah, structure my thoughts. But I can literally dump out what I how I think something works and then tell the AI write it for clarity. And it'll understand me. So AI is smart enough to understand my kind of like stream of consciousness and write it out in a cohesive, well planned, well written document. And that totally reduces the my gap between me and Paul Graham or somebody like that that is an excellent writer that is very thoughtful and spends a lot of time. Now, obviously, Paul Graham is still way ahead of me on like structuring thought and being able to make good arguments and stuff, but that gap is dramatically closed. It's not like 100x anymore. Maybe it's just 2x. uh, and
I mean,
that's a
I think
very
you're underestimating how your concise bangers on Twitter, how valuable that is. That's actually harder to do than long form writing.
Um, no, I'm it's easier because I'm borrowing a lot of concepts that everyone else has built up, and I'm just gluing a few things together without having to go explain how all these things are interconnected. And people already know, like the banger, people already know what I'm saying. They already had that thought. I just get to repeat it and they acknowledge it. I think that's a very subtle but very big change because the way that like big changes move forward is actually through storytelling and ideas and things like that. And if you can concisely explain how big things need to change, they'll actually happen. So I'm pretty excited for that. I think AI agents reviewing what the hell government does, summarizing it, explaining it, people dumping their like reaction to that, right? And then having AI reconstruct it into sound, actual good arguments, and give feedback in that process is going to massively speed things up um, in a in the U.S. for sure. I don't know about kind of more bureaucratic societies, but I'm pretty stoked for what's going to happen in the United States.
Yeah, I mean, I think people already like I've actually met a number of people, even in like at the government or around government, who've actually been successful because they managed to like dump the new bill into ChatGPT and effectively being able to ask questions. And when you need like the whole spending bill, right, which is like, hey, we need to pass it tomorrow. Here's 500 pages. Go, right? Like it's impossible to really analyze it, but if you can just like, hey, tell me what are the like five most expensive items, who added them, explain why, etc. Right? You can start just like tearing through that a lot quicker. Um, yeah, I think what you're describing is like there's effectively a few stages of, from my perspective, of kind of AI adoption, right? And so that is like a co-pilot stage, right? This is where like you are driving, but AI is like refining your thoughts or helps you with like information gathering and kind of basic analysis. I think what your point about like people underestimating where this is going is when it does start making decisions, because a lot of our lives is just a set of small decisions and set of small markets or large markets, right? And so I'm actually really excited when we can start offloading some of the decisions to AI, because you can specify your preferences, you can specify your kind of show how you've made decisions before, and now it can effectively apply that pattern going forward, but you can scale that a lot wider. And this can be on the government, like for government, right, where like literally can vote on every bill. Like every individual can vote on every bill, just their AI is doing it like real time. uh, but also like which food to choose, which drugs. Like you don't need FDA be the essential authority to review everything and decide if it's healthy for everything, right? Each individual can like review every single drug and decide if it's healthy for them or not. So things like that, right? But it scales kind of across the industries.
Yeah, the danger there is it kind of becomes like your your Google Maps, where you stop memorizing your city and you just like trust the map to tell you how to get from point A to point B. Um, you were mobile in the 90s, or mobile enough to have like built your own map inside your brain of where you lived,
Yeah,
like pre MapQuest. So that was just normal part of life, right? You kind of like by driving everywhere. You never I've never looked at a mapping thing while I for like the first 5 years of my driving life. Um, so I wonder, once people start delegating more and more tasks to this thing that is mostly correct most of the time, do we
just give
start
up on the
losing?
muscle. Yeah.
Yeah, do we give up on the muscle? That's probably the one danger. The other danger that I joke about is that if an AI can infinitely entertain people, if it can just constantly tell good jokes, that's that's the sneakiest way to attack
That- that's
humanity.
that's called TikTok, no?
No,
It's an
TikTok
infinite
is not
feed
a
of of entertainment.
TikTok is not as good as what uh, ASI could do, right? In theory.
That's true. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think there is an interesting question there, which is, I mean, the like, and partially why I'm very concerned that if there's like a single for-profit company that just kind of presses on that, like gets that right and just presses on that right, then indeed we can just end up as like, right, just maximize the attention, maximize everybody's like time spent on this, and you
Well,
kind
if
of
it's a
need.
single company, if it's a monopolist, they don't actually need to do that because they're already capturing all the value. The problem is if there isn't a monopoly and there's competition, and they will constantly tune it to be more and more entertaining.
Well, but this is why we need it on the users. We need something that's like on the user side and actually cares about your like holistic, well-being, and is actually interested in you, like not atrophying your decision-making muscle, be you learning new things and kind of expanding. Like we kind of need to tune for that.
That's like asking people to exercise for help.
I mean, there is people who are exercising, right? There is an intrinsic motivation to do that.
A small percentage, yes.
Yeah, well, let's get everyone exercising too. Yeah, no, I mean, I think that there is interesting kind of tensions here, which is indeed, if it's like a pure capitalism, that indeed like you have kind of motivation uh, for everyone to effectively like try to steal your attention and kind of create more addictive products. So I do actually think, I mean, where crypto comes in is the whole point of crypto is not just pure capitalism. It's actually like having a co-ownership in the system, which, should grow in value, but it also doesn't need to, like at some point, right? It can achieve some state where, everybody's kind of participating, uh, and so there is an interesting argument that a crypto system can actually be more user driven than a for profit company would be.
Why wouldn't those users' attentions be eaten up by a more aggressive, capitalist-driven competitor for the same functionality? It's like send mail, right? You run your own send mail server, and then Gmail made it made it extremely easy to not do that because they earn a profit from you not doing that.
Yeah, by showing you ads and showing you other stuff. Well, I mean, it needs to be as easy. It needs to be competitive on the product side.
So then it's also turning up the entertainment button of the AI.
The yeah, release endorphins button.
Yeah, you know, so, yeah, I think we're screwed. We're The reason why we're alive during this age is because This is the transformation from that asymptotic into singularity stage. And this would be the most interesting thing to simulate post singularity to see if there's any other way that humanity could have like
Could have went.
yeah could have done made any other choices. We're just one of the millions of iterations making the same mistakes.
I mean, I don't know if those are mistakes. Like the thing is, I think that if this evolution is pretty natural, right? As kind of computing is done, like everything is kind of pointing in this direction. So I think it's indeed is a question like, what is that final state where the computing and human are effectively on par, or computing is beyond that, and like it at some point. I mean, like I agree with you that like there's intermediate step, which is this kind of capitalism. Let's just take all the users' attention. And my point is, we kind of in that right now. That's actually like we kind of have like few of these products which are effectively right now competing for users' attention and trying to maximize it.
They're not AI driven though. They're
They
still
are.
human
I mean,
driven.
they very much like TikTok is just an algorithm. It's like a
Sure, but humans, you still have people competing to provide the content.
yeah. I mean, for now.
So that's the
That's
problem is
changing in like next 2 years.
once that goes away and it's all purely AI generated, then
I mean,
the,
our X feeds are probably half AI generated at this point.
that's why they keep getting better and better.
Yeah, but but I think like again, to me the next evolution where we are, um like where we see like a real transformation, not in entertainment but like in kind of how we operate day to day. I do think that that will also change how we perceive entertainment, and also like in some ways can undermine the capitalism systems that are generating those kind of entertainment apps. Because like if you just buy a phone and phone effectively has your assistant and it does everything including generate entertainment for you, right? But if you just like get stuck in that, and you're not gonna like like that also not economical. So I think there's interesting systems that can be built out of that. Maybe actually an interesting topic, given the Solana mobile, like how you see the evolution of devices given AI as well.
I think cost to run AI is going to continue to drop. So it'll be somewhat commoditized, and the big winners are going to be kind of Meta and Apple, um, because Meta has this massive data and user advantage, and Apple has the device advantage. So they kind of have these natural modes where I think it's going to be actually kind of hard for OpenAI or whoever else to really create like a sticky mode.
I the thing is, like, I actually think what DeepSeek shown is that the data mode doesn't really exist. Like I think that at least on the AI side itself, like a lot of
I don't think
the
for training. It's more for the just the users interacting. Like you have the network effects of users talking to each other. That's hard to move, and you can't like move all of Facebook's users and their interactions and posts into ChatGPT. So ChatGPT is kind of single player. Facebook is not single player by default, and that has a huge advantage in terms of deploying AI services and like things like that for the consumer. Um, so if you have like that, if you have a large consumer base that is has network effects between them, that those are it's a good spot to be. Similarly for Apple, like because of just how well their devices are plugged into every aspect of your life, it's just hard to remove them. So it's easy for them to take the cheapest implementation of AI. I don't care if it comes from ChatGPT or from DeepStack. Like the model is cooked, it's like open source. They'll just plug it into everywhere, it makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, Apple for sure is definitely an interesting position to capitalize on that. We do need an open version though. That is
Yeah. So are you
not.
guys building the trillion parameter model?
Yeah, that's one of the things. I mean, that's one is more about like right now, effectively everything that's even open, like what we call open source, is actually not open source, right? It's open parameters models, but the source code is not known. Like we don't know what data went in, we don't know what like post training was used, uh, and so given all of these models are just data, right? If you don't know the data, you don't know the like what actually it's uh, able to do, how reasons, and it's important because there's actually ways to do sleeper agents. So like I think everybody, you know, I mean, and like DeepSeek is obviously very exciting, but like there is known ways to effectively train a model to do things based on triggers, including like based on years, so it can like only after some date on the in specific context, etc., which really hard to catch unless you've seen and have verified way of evaluating the what went in, how it was trained. And so that's kind of the idea. Like, how do we train an actual open source model like at sufficient scale? Obviously, use and distill it to smaller models, so for actual usage, but that everybody can inspect all the inputs and kind of understand, like even prove that like, hey, it contains this data, it doesn't contain this data.
I think open training will actually be somewhat reasonable because the glut of hardware deployment is going to start to start depreciating, and you can just use previous gen stuff to catch up. Um, those data centers are going to need customers in 2 years, right? Like so, um, I think I think it's somewhat doable.
I mean, even now there's actually like there's a ton of like 2 to 4 thousand GPU clusters available, like H100 clusters,
Yep.
uh, because people bought a lot of them, but it's not as easy to utilize like medium sized cluster as people think. Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a bunch of interesting research on how to do kind of distributed training as well, which starts to show interesting, like promising results around just like how much data you need to uh, send around. Yeah, I mean, I think the open version though, of, like we do need a device that's like really everybody can rely on, that it's not like trying to do all of those things with you, right? And maximize your endorphin release.
Yep.
Something that like people can actually truly own. Like I am excited for to see that to continue happening.
Yep. Yeah, me too.
What's I guess like what's for this year? What are you the most excited about? I mean, in Solana ecosystem and Web3 in general.
The usual stuff, stablecoin adoption. I think there's going to be $1 trillion worth of stablecoins in 5 years. So figuring out how to get traction there is probably maybe the most important thing. And it's boring. It's payments, and payments is hard. But I think that's probably the most transformative thing that crypto will accomplish. The other one, obviously, Seeker launching, so that's getting close. Excited for that, and then trying to build a ecosystem around it is a slog, but also exciting. And Fire Dancer is pretty close. I don't want to jinx them, but they're making a ton of progress. I think the full node is staying up between like an invalid, like a block hash mismatch, bank hash mismatch, like for weeks now. So their like errors are getting more and more rare. It basically feels like in the final stretch.
Do you feel like everybody will switch to Fire Dancer, like the adoption on the validator sides?
Um, I mean, we'll definitely get more than 33% adoption once it's out. Then you need somewhere between 33 and 66%.
for the performance.
It's just for safety, right? Because you want them to halt the network if they diverge, if there's a bug.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, also like for median performance as well to improve, you kind of need.
Agave is pretty fast, so actually the challenges with improving performance of the network is more to do with like bookkeeping and accounting and the SVM of all the resource usage. Um, it's basically like um, it's really hard to accurately measure how compute is used and the cost of that usage in a multi-threaded VM. There's just a lot of interplay between resources. So you're kind of doing your best effort to be prevent the worst case from happening. If you double the block space, you're effectively giving the attacker more leverage. So tightening those measurements and making it more robust and stuff, that's maybe the biggest challenge. But it's just work.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, same thing. Been dealing with a lot of that from early on, just like running simulations at different scenarios, right? You kind of need to understand like cache misses, the across 5 layers of different systems, like how they're affecting everything. What is the worst case scenario? What's the best case scenario? I definitely think, I mean, stablecoin adoption, getting more applications, getting more just people on chain as well, right? Even if they don't know about this, right? They're just like hidden behind, some even fintech application or some of this applications who are just using blockchain on the back end. I mean, I think the SpaceX example was really cool, right? Like they needed to receive money from Brazil. They're like, oh yeah, stablecoin is
Yep.
actually the easiest way to move it around, fastest too.
Yep.
So yeah, so I think that's very exciting, and I think now yeah, it was like political shift. It's not a taboo anymore, so it will be way easier. And yeah, I think in 4 years we're definitely gonna have so much of this already like ingrained into financial system. But even you're right that like even past 2 years when they were kind of trying to kill crypto, it's like you can't really do that. Like it's the analogy I've heard from China was like, you know, crypto is like water. It doesn't matter how many stones you put in front of it,
Yeah.
right? It just finds its way. So I think every government have learned that already. So now it's really like about adopting it and actually like using this water themselves to carry them forward. Appreciate you joining in. Great conversation. There's a lot to do. There's a lot to learn, but also worth
So
appreciating that.
are are you gonna move back to the States?
I'm actually in San Francisco right now.
Oh, right on.
Yeah, yeah, I'm here for a few months, and then we'll see. But yeah,
Well,
I mean, definitely the center of mass is here now, so it's important to uh, kind of keep building here.
awesome.
Yeah, I'm actually like 2 blocks away from the from where our offices were.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, our offices were actually like across the street from each other when we were starting
Yeah.
in 1819. So we would meet with Anatoly for coffee.
Yeah.
uh, yeah. So, but yeah, just wanted to say, yeah, like it's been a long road since then, but yeah, I mean, obviously, you guys done amazingly well, and it's yeah, it's exciting to see kind of progress across the board.
Thank you. Yeah. So likewise. And good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you.